There comes a moment in life when you realize how tired you are. Not tired of working, not tired of struggling, not even tired of waiting. You are tired of explaining. Explaining why you chose that path. Explaining why you left. Explaining why you changed. Explaining why you are no longer the person people remember. Zen philosophy begins with a quiet truth. A person who is at peace does not feel the need to be understood. Yet most of us live our lives as if we are standing in a courtroom, constantly defending ourselves to people who were never meant to be the judge. From childhood, we are trained to explain. Why did you do that? Why didn't you do this? What were you thinking? Slowly, without noticing, we learn something dangerous, that our existence needs justification. Zen sees this as the first illusion. The mountain does not explain why it stands. The river does not explain why it flows away instead of toward you. The tree does not explain why it sheds its leaves. They simply are. But humans forget this simplicity. We explain ourselves to parents who do not listen, to friends who already decided, to strangers who only want confirmation of their own beliefs. Zen masters say, when you explain yourself too much, you are no longer living. You are negotiating your right to exist. Think about how often you replay conversations in your mind. What you should have said, how you should have clarified, how you should have defended yourself better. That inner noise is not intelligence. It is attachment. Attachment to approval. Attachment to being seen as good. Attachment to being safe from misunderstanding. Zen teaches something radical. Misunderstanding is not danger. It is freedom. When someone misunderstands you and you survive it, you grow stronger. When someone judges you and your world does not collapse, you awaken. The need to explain comes from fear. Fear of being rejected. Fear of being seen as wrong. Fear of being alone. But Zen reminds us, you were always alone in your mind, and you were always whole. There is a story in Zen tradition. A student asks the master, "Why do people criticize me even when I do nothing wrong?" The master replies, "Why are you handing them the rope to pull you?" Every explanation you give is a rope. You hand it over, hoping they will not pull, but they always do. Not because they are evil, but because pulling gives them power. Zen does not teach you to argue better. It teaches you to step away from the rope. Silence is not weakness. Silence is clarity. When you stop explaining, something uncomfortable happens at first. People become confused. They push harder. They accuse you of changing, of becoming cold, of becoming distant. But Zen says, this discomfort is the sound of false expectations collapsing. People were not attached to you. They were attached to the version of you that kept explaining. When that version disappears, they panic. This is not your responsibility. A Zen monk once said, when you are walking the true path, you will offend those who live by maps. Maps need explanations. Paths do not. You do not owe an explanation for protecting your peace. You do not owe an explanation for choosing rest over chaos. You do not owe an explanation for outgrowing conversations that drain your soul. Zen is not loud about this. It does not shout. It does not argue. It simply steps back. And in that step back, clarity enters. This is the first lesson. Your life is not a debate. And when you truly understand that, the need to explain begins to fade. When someone demands an explanation from you, they rarely want understanding. Zen philosophy teaches this quietly, without accusation, without bitterness. Most people do not ask why, because they are curious. They ask why, because your choice disturbed something inside them. Your silence makes them uncomfortable. Your change makes them uncertain. Your independence makes them feel exposed. So they ask questions, not to learn, but to regain control. Zen masters observed this centuries ago. People demand explanations when your actions challenge the story they tell themselves. Think about it. When you change, someone else must face the fact that change was always possible. When you walk away, someone else must face the fact that staying was a choice. When you choose peace, someone else must face the chaos they keep entertaining. That is painful. So instead of looking inward, they look at you. They ask, "Why are you like this now? Why did you stop? Why didn't you say anything?" But the deeper question they are asking is never spoken. Why am I still the same? Zen does not blame them. It understands human fear. The human ego is built on comparison. It needs reference points. It needs roles. When you refuse to explain, you remove yourself as a reference, and that feels like the ground disappearing beneath them. A Zen saying goes, "When the mirror walks away, the face must confront itself." You were someone's mirror. Your behavior validated their choices. Your presence made their life feel normal. Your explanations reassured them that they were not behind. When you stop explaining, the mirror shatters. And people do not get angry because you left. They get angry because you took the mirror with you. This is why explanations rarely bring peace. You can explain calmly, gently, clearly, with kindness, and still be misunderstood. Because misunderstanding is not always accidental. Sometimes it is chosen. Zen teaches that some people need you to be wrong so they can remain right. Some people need your explanation to sound weak so they can feel strong. Some people need your silence to feel rude so they can feel justified. If you understand this, you stop trying to correct perceptions. You realize something profound. You were never meant to manage other people's comfort. Another Zen story speaks of a monk who left his village without saying goodbye. Years later, someone asked him, "Why didn't you explain yourself before leaving?" The monk replied, "Those who trusted me did not need it. Those who didn't would not believe it." This is one of the deepest Zen truths. Explanations do not create trust. Trust exists before explanation. If someone truly respects you, they will allow space for your silence. If someone truly cares, they will not demand access to your inner world. Demands are not love. They are fear wearing authority. Zen philosophy teaches us to observe patterns, not argue with them. Notice who asks for explanations when you grow. Notice who becomes uncomfortable when you stop justifying. Notice who feels entitled to your reasons. These patterns are not random. They reveal attachment. Attachment to who you were. Attachment to control. Attachment to familiarity. Zen does not ask you to cut people off aggressively. It asks you to step back gently, like removing your hand from a fire without announcing it. Silence is not punishment. Silence is alignment. When you stop explaining, you return energy to yourself. Energy that was leaking. Energy that was being drained through endless conversations that went nowhere. Zen sees energy as sacred. Every unnecessary explanation is energy spent on the past, on other people's expectations, on stories that no longer serve you. And here is the hardest truth. Some people only feel close to you when they can question you. When you remove explanations, they feel distant, not because you left, but because they no longer have access. Zen says, access is a privilege, not a right. Your thoughts are not public property. Your healing is not a committee decision. Your path does not need approval. This is where many people struggle. They confuse kindness with openness. They confuse honesty with exposure. They confuse peace with passivity. Zen separates these clearly. You can be kind and silent. You can be honest and private. You can be peaceful and firm. The need to explain often hides guilt. Guilt for disappointing. Guilt for changing. Guilt for choosing yourself. But Zen gently removes this guilt. You are not responsible for fulfilling outdated expectations. You are not responsible for being understandable to those who refuse to listen. You are not responsible for staying familiar. A Zen master once said, "When you outgrow a room, The walls will accuse you of betrayal. That accusation is not truth. It is resistance. The moment you stop explaining, you will feel two things at once: relief and fear. Relief, because the weight lifts. Fear, because you are no longer negotiating. Zen tells you to stay with that fear, not to run, not to explain it away. That fear is the doorway to freedom, because on the other side of explanation is something rare: self-trust. When you trust yourself, you do not need agreement. When you trust yourself, you do not chase understanding. When you trust yourself, you allow others to misunderstand and keep walking. This is not arrogance. This is maturity. Zen maturity is quiet, unimpressive, unannounced. It simply moves forward. There is a quiet hunger inside most people. Not a hunger for food, not a hunger for success, but a hunger to be understood, to be seen correctly, to be interpreted fairly, to be known in the way you know yourself. Zen philosophy does not dismiss this hunger. It simply asks you to look at it closely, because hidden inside this desire is the source of much suffering. You think you want understanding, but what you often want is relief. Relief from being misjudged, relief from being questioned, relief from feeling alone inside your own experience. So you explain, you clarify, you justify, you give context, and for a moment, it feels lighter, but the relief never lasts. Because the problem was never misunderstanding. The problem was attachment. Zen teaches that the need to be understood is the need to control perception, and control, even when gentle, creates tension. Think about how exhausting it feels to shape yourself into words, to compress your entire inner world into something small enough for someone else to accept. Zen asks a quiet question: why must your truth fit inside another person's comfort? Your life is fast, messy, contradictory. Words flatten it. No explanation can fully carry what you have lived. No sentence can translate your growth. No story can make someone feel your turning points, and yet you keep trying. Zen does not shame this. It understands. From the moment you learned language, you were taught that expression brings connection, but Zen reveals a deeper truth. True connection does not come from explanation. It comes from presence. Presence needs no defense. Presence needs no justification. When you are present in who you are, those who can meet you will. Those who cannot, won't. And that is not a failure. The need to be understood often comes from childhood, from moments when you were not listened to, from times when you were misunderstood and hurt. So later in life, you try harder, you explain more clearly, you anticipate objections, you over-communicate. Zen gently points out, you are speaking to the past. You are explaining now what no one could hear then. But the past does not listen, and the present does not need your apology. Another Zen teaching says, a bird does not explain why it sings. Those who hear, hear. The moment you accept this, something inside you relaxes. You stop translating yourself. You stop performing clarity. You stop rehearsing conversations in your head. And slowly, your nervous system learns something new. You can survive being misunderstood. This is a turning point, because fear of misunderstanding keeps you small. It keeps you agreeable. It keeps you explaining choices you already made with your whole heart. Zen invites you to try something radical. Let someone misunderstand you, and do nothing about it. No correction, no clarification, no defense. Just breathe. At first, this feels wrong, almost dangerous. Your body tightens. Your mind races. You want to jump in and fix it. Zen says, stay. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with the urge. Stay with the silence. Because that discomfort is the old habit breaking. The habit of managing perception. the habit of being acceptable, the habit of proving goodness. Zen understands something psychology also confirms. The need to be understood is closely tied to identity. You want people to see you the way you see yourself. But Zen gently loosens identity. It reminds you, you are not the story you tell about yourself. You are not the version others hold. You are not the explanation. You are the awareness beneath all of it. When someone misunderstands you, they misunderstand an image, not your essence. And images are not you. This is why Zen masters appear calm, even when criticized. They are not protecting an image. They are resting in being. There is a powerful moment when you realize you don't actually want everyone to understand you. You only want safety. And Zen offers a different kind of safety. Not the safety of approval, but the safety of self-trust. Self-trust says, I know who I am, even if you don't. Self-trust says, I do not need agreement to continue. Self-trust says, I am allowed to be private. Privacy is sacred in Zen, not secrecy, not hiding, but sacred space. Your inner world is not a public meeting. Not everyone gets a seat. And when you stop explaining, you are not being rude. You are protecting something tender, your energy, your clarity, your direction. Zen reminds us that clarity is fragile. Too much exposure dissolves it. This is why monks keep silence, not to be mysterious, but to stay aligned. Every explanation pulls you outward. Every silence returns you inward. When you live inwardly, you move with less friction, less resistance, less argument, less emotional exhaustion. You begin to choose your words carefully, not because you are afraid, but because you no longer waste them. There is also grief in letting go of being understood. Grief for the version of you that wanted harmony at all costs, that wanted everyone to be okay, that wanted no tension. Zen allows this grief. It does not rush you. It says, it is okay to mourn the self who tried so hard. And then it invites you forward into a quieter life, a life where you speak when needed and rest when not, a life where explanations are rare and presence is constant, a life where you no longer chase understanding but allow resonance. Resonance cannot be forced. It happens naturally. Some people will feel you, some will not. And Zen smiles at both. Silence is often misunderstood. People think silence is absence. They think it means weakness. They think it means you have nothing to say. Zen knows better. Silence is not empty. It is full, full of awareness, full of choice, full of strength that does not need to prove itself. Most noise in the world exists because people are afraid of silence. Silence removes distraction. Silence removes roles. Silence removes the chance to hide behind words. When you stop explaining yourself, you step into silence. And silence changes the balance of power. Not power over others, but power within yourself. Zen teaches that real authority does not announce itself. It settles. Think about how people react when you do not respond immediately, when you do not rush to clarify, when you do not defend. They lean forward. They feel uncertain. They fill the space with their own assumptions. This is not manipulation. This is natural human psychology. The one who is silent is no longer reacting. They are observing. Zen calls this position the still point. From the still point, you see more clearly. You see who needs noise. You see who needs control. You see who becomes uncomfortable when they cannot access you. Silence reveals people without you saying a word. When you speak too much, you cover the truth. When you explain too much, you dilute your presence. Zen says, what does not move is difficult to push. Silence grounds you. It slows your breath. It softens your reactions. It gives you time to choose instead of respond. Most explanations are reactions. They come from the urge to fix discomfort, to smooth tension, to regain safety. Silence does the opposite. It allows discomfort to exist. It allows tension to pass. It allows safety to come from within. There is a story of a Zen master who was accused publicly of wrongdoing. People waited for his explanation. He said nothing. Days passed. Then weeks. Eventually, the accusation lost energy. People moved on. The truth remained intact. When asked later why he did not defend himself, he said, "Truth does not chase. Silence does not mean you accept falsehood. It means you trust time." Zen has deep faith in time. Time reveals intentions. Time exposes insecurity. Time dissolves lies. Words try to rush. What time does naturally. When you stop explaining, you stop interrupting truth. There is also dignity in silence. Dignity does not beg to be seen. Dignity does not plead its case. Dignity does not argue. It stands. Zen dignity is quiet. It does not need applause. It does not need recognition. It knows. This is why silence feels powerful. Not because it dominates others, but because it returns you to yourself. When you are silent, you feel your body again, your breath, your grounding. You are no longer split between who you are and who you are trying to appear to be. That split is exhausting. Silence heals it. There is a moment when you realize something surprising. People who respected you before will respect you more. People who relied on your explanations will drift away. Zen sees this as natural sorting, not punishment, not rejection, alignment. Silence clarifies relationships. It shows who connects with your essence and who only connected with your availability. Availability is not intimacy. Availability is access. When you remove access, real connection becomes visible. Silence also protects your energy. Every conversation costs something. Every explanation drains a little clarity. Zen monks are careful with speech, because speech disperses energy. Not all silence is good, but intentional silence is medicine. Intentional silence says, "I am choosing presence over performance." It says, "I am not here to convince." It says, "I trust myself." Silence also teaches patience. When you do not explain, you learn to wait. You learn to let others sit with their discomfort. You learn to let situations unfold without interference. This patience is strength. It keeps you from unnecessary conflict. It keeps you from emotional overextension. It keeps you centered. There is a deeper layer here. Silence is how you return authority to your life. When you explain yourself constantly, you give others the role of evaluator. They listen, they judge, they decide. Silence removes the evaluator. You decide. This does not make you closed. It makes you sovereign. Zen sovereignty is gentle. It does not push. It does not dominate. It simply does not surrender. There is peace in this. A peace that is not fragile. A peace that does not depend on being liked. A peace that does not shatter when misunderstood. When you stop explaining, your words become rare. And rarity increases value. When you do speak, people listen. Not because you demand attention, but because you do not waste it. Zen teaches, speak when your words improve the silence. Otherwise, remain silent. This is not withdrawal. It is refinement. You are refining your presence, your energy, your direction. And slowly, without force, without announcement, your life becomes Kita, not empty, but clear. There is a moment when something inside you settles, not because the world became kinder, not because people finally understood you, but because you stopped asking them to. Zen calls this moment returning home. Home is not a place. It is a state where you no longer argue with reality. You stop negotiating your choices. You stop defending your growth. You stop translating your silence into words for others. And slowly, life becomes lighter. Not easier, but lighter. You begin to move without carrying invisible weight. The weight of anticipation. The weight of imagined judgment. The weight of explanations you were preparing for conversations that never truly mattered. Living without explanation does not mean living without care. Zen is very clear about this. You still act with integrity. You still act with compassion. You still act with awareness. But you no longer act to be understood. This is the difference. When you live to be understood, you walk carefully. You edit yourself. You pause too often. When you live freely, you walk honestly. Zen freedom is not rebellion. It is alignment. You are aligned with your breath, your values, your inner sense of direction. You no longer rush to close gaps in understanding. You allow space. Space for silence. Space for misunderstanding. Space for people to project. And space for yourself to remain whole. There is a subtle confidence that emerges when you no longer explain. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It is felt. People sense it, even if they cannot name it. They feel that you are no longer available for unnecessary negotiation. This does not make you unkind. It makes you clear. Clarity is a form of kindness because it does not mislead. You are no longer saying yes with your words and no with your energy. You are congruent. Zen places great importance on congruence. When inner and outer match, there is peace. When they do not, there is exhaustion. Most exhaustion in life does not come from effort. It comes from pretending, from explaining choices you already made, from justifying feelings you already felt, from proving intentions you already lived. Living without explanation ends this performance. You stop rehearsing. You stop predicting reactions. You stop pre-defending yourself. And your mind grows quieter. In that quiet, something important happens. You begin to hear yourself. Your real yes. Your real no. Your real pace. Zen teaches that wisdom does not shout. It whispers. But whispers can only be heard when the noise fades. Silence creates listening. Listening creates alignement. Alignement creates peace. Living without explanation also changes how you experience time. You stop rushing conversations. You stop needing closure from everyone. You stop tying loose ends that were never yours. Time opens. You move slower. Not because you are lazy, but because you are no longer running from misunderstanding. You accept that some people will never get you. Zen bows to this truth. Not everyone is meant to walk with you. Not everyone is meant to understand your turns. Not everyone is meant to know your reasons. And that is okay. This acceptance is maturity. It allows love without attachment, connection without dependency, care without self-betrayal. You can still be warm, still be gentle, still be present, but you are no longer available to explain your existence. There is a quiet joy in this, a joy that comes from self-trust. Self-trust says, I know why I chose this, and that is enough. You no longer need witnesses for your inner decisions. Zen says, a tree does not invite the forest to approve its growth. You grow because growth is natural. You rest because rest is needed. You leave because staying would betray you. No explanation required. When you live this way, conflict decreases. Not because everyone agrees, but because you are no longer feeding resistance. You stop correcting. You stop persuading. You stop proving. You let life respond in its own time. And life does. Always. The people who belong remain. The people who relied on access fade. This is not loss. It is refinement. Your circle becomes quieter, smaller, truer. And in that space, you breathe. You sleep better. You think more clearly. You feel less tension in your body. because your nervous system is no longer on trial. Zen, living without explanation, is not a rule. It is a realization that peace comes from self-alignment, not external agreement. That understanding is a gift, not a requirement. That silence is not absence, but presence, and that you are allowed to exist without justification. Let this settle. You do not need to announce this change. You do not need to explain it. Just live it, quietly, naturally, and the world will adjust.